Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's show. In today's show, I will be answering the question, how come a normal guy named Siddhartha Gautama managed to create a religion with 500 million followers worldwide, with no creator myth, no God, no permanent soul, and no promise of an everlasting happiness in the afterlife? Yes, I will be talking about Buddhism. You will find out how Buddhism came about, what it stands for, and how I apply some of its principles to deal with my own trauma. I am Benjamin, and welcome to the Florin Beniamin Show. Welcome back. Because this is the first episode of the show, I consider it would be important to let you know who I am. My name is Benjamin. I am 32 years old. I am born and raised in Romania and now living in Denmark. I have no higher education background. I finished high school. That's the most I've done regarding formal education. I have a normal job. I work in food delivery. Since I was small, I was always passionate about psychology. What makes people move? What influences people? And what can help them? I remember maybe I was 12 or 13 years old when I ordered one of my first self-development books, Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, and I read some of it. I don't remember that much from the book now, but that interest of mine at such a young age was a telltale sign to what's to come. Everything you hear on this show is my opinion, so I have nothing to lose by being here and speaking my truth. So you'll get an honest and open discussion. Coming back to the topic of today's show, you might ask yourself, how can a guy born 3,000 years ago can help someone nowadays? We are so advanced technologically. We went to the moon and back. We have created enormous amounts of wealth and products. We have plenty of food. We have comfort. We have jobs. Most humanity does not live in a war zone. Is that much more that is left to do? Well, that is a very good question. We did all these great things, achievements, but there is one that seems as far away as it ever was. That is, we still suffer. It might be that you have money, and then the problem is how to spend them, or that you have a headache or depression that no one ever can figure it out. Your kids can be healthy, but they can be too loud sometimes, or they will at some point move out of your home and you'll miss them. The list is endless. There are a lot of forms of suffering, and that this suffering pushes people to explore and see what can be done to alleviate, or like Buddha did, stop it altogether. I think to alleviate suffering, people do all kinds of things, from drinking, eating, smoking, to working a lot, to always being on their smartphone, to play games all day, to sleep, to have unsafe sexual relationship. The list of addictions is enormous. As Gabor Mate puts it, it is impossible to understand addiction without asking what relief the addict finds or hopes to find in the drug or the addictive behavior. When it comes to Buddhism, as far as I can find, there is no best way of seeing life and explaining what is going on here on Earth. Even Albert Einstein, which is considered one of the most intelligent people to have ever lived, had an opinion about this, and I suppose a struggle. This is how he tried to explain it. A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. The striving to free oneself from his delusion is one of the issues of true religion. Not to nourish the delusion, but to try to overcome it is the way to reach the attainable measures of peace of mind. So even though I said there is no best way to explain what is going on here on earth, I believe that Buddhism is one of the better ways that we found out. Now, I am going to offer you a brief overview of what Buddhism is. To do that, I will use as support Walpolas Rahula's book, What Buddha Taught. For anyone interested in Buddhism or an introduction to Buddhism, this book offers a good way of doing that. So what is Buddhism? Buddhism is in a conventional view is a religion, and its founder is Buddha. Buddha was a real person who lived in North India in the 6th century BC. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and he was the son of a king. He lived in the palace with all the luxury at his command. Confronted with the reality of life and the suffering of mankind, he decided to find the solution, the way out of the universal suffering. At the age of 29, he left his kingdom and became an ascetic in search of this solution. He visited various religious teachers, studying and following their systems, and submitting himself to rigorous ascetic practices. They did not satisfy him. At the age of 35, after abandoning all traditional methods at the time, seated under a tree known as Bodhi, Gautama attained enlightenment, after which he was known as Buddha, the enlightened one. After his enlightenment, he spent the rest of his life teaching all people, no matter the social status or wealth, bankers or robbers, kings or peasants. He passed away at the age of 80. Today, Buddhism is found mainly around Asia, having around 500 million followers. What is Buddhism about, though? What are the teachings of Buddha? For the scope of this video, I will enumerate them and then talk briefly about some of them which I found the most interesting. Fundamental teachings of Buddha are the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Five Aggregates, Karma, Rebirth, Conditioned Genesis, the Doctrine of No Soul or Annata, and Satipatthana, or the setting up of mindfulness. Now, it's time to discuss some of the points I talked about in the beginning of the video. I will start with the idea that in Buddhism there is no God and there is no soul. Walpola Rahula writes in his book, two ideas are psychologically deep-rooted in man: self-protection and self-preservation. For self-protection, man has created God, on whom he depends for his own protection, safety, and security, just as a child depends on its parent. For self-preservation, man has conceived the idea of an immortal soul, or Atman, which will live eternally. This quote sums up the Buddhist view on both matters. They are both a human mind creation for comfort and trying to explain the unexplainable. According to the Buddha's teachings, the beginning of life stream of living being is unthinkable. The believer in the creation of life by God may be astonished at this observation made by Buddha. But if you were to ask a Christian or Muslim, what is the beginning of God? He would most likely answer without hesitation, God has no beginning. And he is not astonished at his own reply. The Buddha says this cycle of continuity or samsara, life, is without a visible end, and the first beginning of beings wandering around and running around, enveloped in ignorance and bound down by the fetters of thirst, is not to be perceived. The first beginning of ignorance is not to be perceived in such a way as to postulate there was no ignorance beyond a certain point. Buddhism does not completely refute, though, the possible existence of a God, but Buddha was a practical, realistic teacher. He recognized the limitations of human beings to grasp and explain the God, so he refused to engage in metaphysical arguments or discussions. The discussion of God is that kind of subject, and he knew that if he agreed that there is a God, some people will use that to justify their actions or deeds, saying, well, I'm like this evil or cursed because I'm like God, or God allowed this to happen. Or they will have one more reason to suffer because they would become fatalistic and lazy, knowing that a God put all this life in motion, so they are powerless. He wanted to limit suffering and to offer people a way out, so this question of God becomes irrelevant and possibly harmful, because it does not, in Buddha's perspective, lead to that outcome of getting rid of suffering. When it comes to the question of a permanent essence that lasts through time and space, and that is a soul, the Buddhists believe it doesn't exist. That comes into forefront when we find out how Buddhism sees a human being. What we call a being or an I is actually a combination of physical and mental energies which are working together interdependently in a flux of momentary change within the law of cause and effect. And nothing is permanent, everlasting, unchanging, and eternal in the whole of existence. Like a river flowing far and swift, taking everything with it, there is no moment, no instant, no second where it stops flowing, but it goes on flowing and continuing. The five aggregates that form a being are aggregate of matter, the aggregate of sensations, the aggregate of perceptions, the aggregate of mental formations, and the aggregate of consciousness. Some people take self to mean what is generally known as the mind or consciousness, but the Buddha says that it's better for a man to take his physical body as self rather than the mind, thought, or consciousness, because the former seems to be more solid than the latter. Because mind, thought, or consciousness changes constantly, day and night, even faster than the body. Now, a question might come to your mind. If there is no permanent self, what is that can re-exist or be reborn after that? The answer is the same energies that we are while we are alive: the will, volition, desire, thirst to exist, to continue, to become more and more. They are tremendous forces that move whole lives, and even the whole world. They will continue manifesting in another form, producing re-existence, which is known as rebirth. To conclude this part of the episode, we are but movement. It is like a flame that burns through the night. It is not the same flame, nor it is another. A child grows up to be a man of 60. Certainly the man of 60 is not the same as the child of 60 years ago, or he is another person. Similarly, a person who dies here and is reborn elsewhere is neither the same person nor another. It is a continuity of the same series. As long as there is a thirst to be and become, the cycle of life continues. It goes on. It can only stop when this life-driving force is cut off through wisdom, which sees reality, truth, nirvana. Now it's time to talk about how Buddhists see life. One of the core teachings of Buddha is the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is Dukkha, which means that life is suffering, imperfection, impermanence, emptiness, and insubstantiality. That life is suffering is nothing new or groundbreaking. We all know deep inside that nothing is permanent. Everything is always changing. Our bodies change, our moods change, and our thoughts change from a second to another second. This dukkha principle is something that I intuitively knew all my life, that everything is changing and moving, and even the most happy or unhappy moments are going to pass. And even in the happiest moments, I still have a drop of sadness sometimes, because I know this happy moment is going to pass as well. And there is still a deeper suffering than these two, the normal suffering and the suffering of change. There is the suffering of conditioned states. The suffering of conditioned states includes concepts like karma and what it means to be a being or an I. It includes the 5 aggregates of attachment that we have already mentioned in the No God or Soul part of the video. An example from Walpole's Rahula's book. When you see a pleasant, charming and beautiful person, you like him or her, you are attracted, you enjoy seeing that person again and again. This is enjoyment, is it a fact of experience, but this enjoyment is not permanent, just as that person and all his attractions are not permanent either. When the situation changes, you cannot see this person again. You are deprived of this enjoyment, you become sad, you might even behave foolishly. This is evil, unsatisfactory, and the dangerous side of this picture. Now, if you do not have any attachment to the person, if you are completely detached, that is freedom, liberation. This is true with regard to all enjoyment in life. Does that mean that we should never ever experience anything that brings us happiness in life? No. On the road to accomplishing what Buddha accomplished, Nirvana, there is a requirement that Buddhists keep the joy in their life up to a certain point far away in their journey, after which they drop it. When it comes to normal life, Buddhists believe it does have its happy and fulfilling moments as well. There is the happiness of a family life, the happiness of a recluse, the happiness of sense pleasures, and the happiness of renunciation, the happiness of attachment, and the happiness of detachment, physical happiness and mental happiness. Let's talk about karma now. You know, you got something valuable when you discover that this religion does not have the concept of a sin, reward, or punishment, does not have a God that sits in judgment and decides what's right and what's wrong. Instead, they have karma, which means action or doing. In Buddhism, karma means volitional action, not all action. Volition may be good or bad, just as desire may be good or bad. Good karma produces good effects, bad karma produces bad effects. Thirst, volition, karma, whether good or bad, has one force as its effect: the will to continue in a bad or bad direction. Whether good or bad, it is relative, and it is within the cycle of continuity or samsara. An enlightened being like Buddha, even though he acts, does not accumulate karma, because he is free from the false idea of self, free from thirst for continuity and becoming. For him, there is no rebirth. But then, what is life though, or samsara? Samsara means wandering. It means continuity, rebirth, and it means that if one has not extinguished thirst and the volition to act, whether it be good or bad, he will return to this world to continue acting. It represents the cycle of life: birth, death, rebirth. If being would be a fire, then the actions we do, karma, is the fire combustion material. The fire of a being will continue burning while it still has fuel or volitional desire to do things. When there is no more combustion material, the fire will be going out, and the being will have been attained nirvana, or be blown out. While there is still karma, the fire keeps burning. It will be another and the same person in the next lifetime. This is tricky to understand. It's tricky to understand because you see this idea, or you as a person now, that's where it can start the understanding. Let's say you are 32 years old like me. When was I me? When I have been 1 year old, 5 years old, or now? Will I be more me when I will be 75? What is Benjamin? It is now, 10, or in the future. Is there a point where, in time, where you could say, this is me now. From now on, I will be not something else. From my perspective, I have always been me, but in the different body size, mental capacity, strength, age. Even now, I'm constantly changing. My body is changing. My mental states are changing. So if in one lifetime I come from a baby and become adult, and then get old and die, and in all these forms, it's still me, then the next lifetime it's still going to be me, but in a different realm maybe, or body shape, or sex, or species, but being animated by the same mental and physical energies that kept me going so far. Now that we come closer to the end of this episode, let's talk about Nirvana. It is pretty hard to explain Nirvana because in some way this subject is similar with the God subject that we talked about. In his book, Walpola Rahula writes, if I focus this purified and cleansed equanimity on the sphere of infinite space and develop a mind conforming thereto, that is a mental creation. If I focus this purified and cleansed equanimity on the sphere of infinite consciousness, on the sphere of nothingness, or in the sphere of neither perception or non-perception, and develop a mind conforming thereto, that is a mental creation. Then he neither mentally creates nor wills continuity and becoming or annihilation. As he does not construct or does not will continuing and becoming or annihilation, he does not cling to anything in the world. As he does not cling, he is not anxious. As he is not anxious, he is completely calm within, or fully blown out within. And he knows, finished is birth, live this pure life, what should be done is done, nothing more is left to be done. According to Buddhism, Nirvana is absolute truth. What is absolute truth, you might ask? That there is nothing absolute in the world, that everything is relative, conditioned and impermanent, and there is no unchanging, everlasting, absolute substance like self, soul, or Atman within or without. Nirvana is not the result of anything either, is not an effect produced by a cause. Truth is not a result nor an effect. The only thing you can do is to see it, to realize it. There is a path leading to the realization of Nirvana, but Nirvana is not the result of this path. You might get to the mountain along a path, but the mountain is not the result nor the effect of the path. You might see a light, but the light is not the result of your eyesight. One lives the holy life with Nirvana as the final plunge into absolute truth, as its goal, as its ultimate end. I know, some of these ideas sound crazy, and some of them you might find interesting. But the big question for me would be, how can these big ideas can be applied for the day-to-day life, so we live a better and more fulfilled life? Well, let me tell you something about that. The first thing I'm doing, applying some of these Buddhist principles, is meditation. One thing is to intellectually understand that there might be no I inside, no me in all this head. But another thing is to actually see that. Awareness of one's thoughts and feelings are a great tool in any scenario, and the more you can actually observe your thoughts, you will better off and be more able to control them. Every time that you do something that you regret later is because you either have not seen it coming or you could not stop it while you're doing that. In my experience, the best is to observe and stop yourself at the beginning of something rather than during something. For example, let's say you realize that you're about to comment about your sister's appearance. That usually it might get you into an argument of some sort. Instead of saying it, you just stop and you allow that thought to pass. You compassionately hold space for that thought and you shut up. If it happens to say it, and then she responds in a way that makes you want to say something back, even though you said it, you can still do the same thing, realizing it is better to suffer only what you already said than the whole back and forth that will follow. I used to meditate daily, around 30 to 40 minutes in total. I just pay attention to my breathing in and out through my nose. The first thing in the morning is meditation, and then the last thing in the day is meditation for me before sleep. A word of caution though about meditation. If you are recovering from severe trauma, you might not want to try meditation, because when the mind calms down to some degree, a lot of what you work on can come rushing at you. I notice that can happen especially in the evenings. You might want to wait until you get a hold of what you're working on before you go inside. You can go to a yoga class instead. They move and breathe with intention, so that can still help you release some of your pain that you have, and it's still better than the meditation because the mind can get used to some pretty not pleasant places if you're working on heavy things. The second practice I do is constant attention awareness in the present moment. One basic but not so common nowadays thing you can do is to eat with no distractions. It doesn't mean you cannot talk when you eat with family or friends. But please, while you eat, don't use a smartphone, don't play games, don't go watch TV, don't play music while you're eating. My behavior baffled me when I started paying attention to it. How come for someone who says that he wants to live a long life, 2 minutes or 2 seconds cannot pass without watching its smartphone, Instagram, or YouTube? It's like we're saying, the only value I find in the present moment is to watch this reel and be instead in my head and not here. If we want to live this life, we better start paying attention to what we're doing while we're doing it. The third practice is do not cling to anything. Normally, when something bad happens and bad emotions come to me, I want them to pass. When something good happens, or I felt good for no particular reason, I want that to last. Isn't that a recipe for a continuous, lifelong disappointment? It is, unfortunately, and because we don't control our thoughts or emotions, what about we stop thinking that they must go or last? This additional thinking creates more suffering than doing whatever you already go through and feeling that. It might look basic at the first glance, but it is a very powerful change of perspective that will always help you. Even though I might repeat some of my previous points, I believe it's worth repeating. When it comes to doing something that you should have not done. Let's say you said something that hurt someone. You bought the wrong pastry. You forgot to take out the dishes from the dishwasher. Do not stay with that for longer than it's needed. I do sometimes have to tendency to allow this internal line of thoughts that started criticizing me and then my behavior, and another line of thoughts comes up that try to educate me about how to do it better next time and make me promise I will do it better. You might believe that's needed, but in 99% of cases it's just additional suffering that doesn't need to happen and that you can avoid. The next thing is shut up more. Speak only if you consider it is of utmost importance or it truly adds to the conversation. Don't speak that much. Don't engage in things that you know will engage other people or yourself. Sometimes we use other people and their reactions as distraction from our internal feelings or suffering. It's like we're playing an unconscious game of chicken and egg, where we don't know why even we're arguing after all. But we're still doing it. If we eliminate 90% of conversation, I believe, we have online or in real life, and we concentrate the most important points in the rest of the 10% that it's left, I think we will be better off. The last and one of the most important things is to be compassionate. This is with respect to anything or anyone. Be compassionate towards yourself, your emotions, your reactions, and your shortcomings. Be compassionate towards your fellow human beings and their reactions. When I first started doing these practices, I was compassionate only towards some of my thoughts and behaviors, not taking into consideration other people and their reactions or behaviors. I recently started truly being compassionate towards any reactions and feelings that someone has, because at any one single point we all try our best, so there is no need to make it wrong or judge it. You can of course continue offering suggestions where you truly believe they are needed. Now that we arrived at the end of the show, before I go to conclusions, I want to thank you for watching. If you liked what you've seen so far and you believe it's worth seeing by more people, give me a like, follow, subscribe to the channel in order to help me reach even a bigger audience. Buddhism has a very interesting view on life and what it means to be a human. It is a very distinct compared with most other religions, and I believe it makes more sense. You might disagree on a lot of points, but even if from all that I have spoken here today, you leave this video with an idea, one single idea that helps you in your way, it's worth doing it for me. No matter what your beliefs are, I hope love, peace, and calm find you. Until next time, Benjamin.
Oh